Hey, good morning. This is Alex with the Southwest Florida Tech Partnership, here with our guest this week, John Talmage, the Director of the Lee County Economic Development Office. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, John.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So John, obviously, the last couple months here, we're at June 1st. The last couple months here have been pretty exciting as far as a lot of activity going on and a lot of things for you and your organization to address and to find different and unique ways to support the community. So can you just take a couple minutes and tell us what you've been up to and what you've been able to accomplish?
Absolutely. Yeah, when we first went into the event, we all didn't know what we were going into, and so with a sort of an air of abundance, caution, we opened up a call center at the Emergency Operations Center for business assistance, and we've from day one we've been operating that 5 days a week, all day long, helping businesses with questions about PPP, unemployment insurance, the different disaster programs that were launched both at the state and federal level. And they gave us an opportunity to reach out to and touch about 3,000 businesses through the event, about 10% of our business community. So I've personally spoken to most of those businesses. And, what's interesting about the event that as we've gone through this, probably 50% of our economy either expanded or stayed fully busy. So if you're in manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, you continue to grow. Neogenomics had a public offering in the middle of the event, a $350 million public offering that went very successfully in one day. So they've broken ground, they've gone vertical in their new building. Scotland just got their development order. So we see that part of the economy continue to buzz, hum along, as well as we probably have never been busier with site selection. Companies calling us from the east coast of Florida or from the tri-state area interested in Southwest Florida as a new location. In fact, we probably will have closed on 1.1 million square feet of new warehousing and distribution space over the next 6 months, just from the calls that have come during the event. The other thing that was really interesting to watch was the number of companies that were able to pivot into PPE manufacturing. So whether it was the distilleries like List and Wicked Dolphin, or it was tuna skin, a bathing suit manufacturer, exploring how to get into the medical gown manufacturing sector, Survival Armor doing the same, companies making face masks, N95s, shields, etc. We now have really significantly localized our supply chain. So where we were once very dependent on bringing goods and services from abroad or outside of the area, almost all of that is now being manufactured here. We just finalized a 60,000 square foot deal for a company that's going to make 6 million face masks a month. Wow. And we'll be a preferred vendor for LeeSar and Lee Health and whatnot. So that part's been really exciting and fulfilling. At the same time, as I'm estimating, we saw somewhere between 75 and 81,000 Lee County residents apply for unemployment insurance, and the pain that represents, and how hard that process was, and how scared people became, knowing not whether they could pay their rent or whatnot. The governor has not decided as of today whether to continue the moratorium on evictions. And so tomorrow, with the courts reopening and people being 2 or 3 months behind on their rent, we could have a spate of evictions that who knows what the unintended consequences of that will be. And so that mostly affected the retail sector and the hospitality sector. So the pain in San Annabelle and Fort Myers Beach and along the coastal areas is unsurmountable, and it's going to be a while for those areas rebound. But we've launched the relaunch grant. We're going to give out at least 5,000 grants to businesses for $5,000. We have $25 million. We're about 10% of the way through that. We've processed all weekend, and while we know that's not going to be a silver bullet for a lot of businesses, but we do know that for some businesses it's enough to bring their rent back to current where they need to be, to replenish some inventory, especially the smaller 1 or 2 person businesses that, 5,000 may be a month worth of revenue for them.
Right.
So we're excited about that. We also are giving out approximately 12,000 individual grants to help people with their rent and mortgage assistance. So
Okay.
I think those 2 programs together will help people, because right now it's just helping people get back and get back in a safe way, feel comfortable going back into a workplace, feel comfortable going back into a crowd, whether it's a church or a theater. But we have to be comfortable with each other again. And so there's a psychology to that. And we hope that what we're able to do is to help people manage that psychology.
For sure. So in regards to those grants, just to take a quick second. So the website to access that information it's leeflcares.com.
.com, yes.
Yep. So leeflcares.com for anybody that's interested to learn more about those services that are being provided by our local government, and that John and his team have been instrumental in putting together and working through. I can imagine there's a lot of meetings and a lot of conversation to try to make sure that you address everybody as equally and fairly as you can.
That's right.
Right. So one question that I wanted to ask you, actually going back quickly to one of the earlier statements you made. So you said that there's been a lot of interest in some of the property in the Southwest Florida region and site surveys and things like that. Do you think that that is just a coincidence that happens to be happening at this time? Or do you think that that's an early indicator of what a lot of people are saying is potentially going to happen, which is, a lot of these people moving away from the bigger cities and the more urban areas and trying to spread out the population a little bit because of what we've seen during COVID?
I mean, I think it's both. The pre-COVID, we were still one of the fastest growing regions in the country,
right?
And Moody's and Reuters had conducted an analysis, and what they are finding is that those areas that were small or medium-sized suburban areas specifically that were fast growing prior to COVID will be the ones that return to fast growth post-COVID, and that the density that you have, and not necessarily in a place like Orlando, but in Miami or down Atlanta and Buckhead and places like that, is what's going to probably create a sense of people making decisions to be in less dense areas. So, we see it in our housing market. Housing sales have rebounded, largely. To give you another indicator, pre-COVID, we were doing about 1,500 permits a week in community development. It dropped to about 700 during the height of COVID. We're back to 1,200 now. Okay. So in the city of Fort Myers and Cape Coral have the same experiences. So, construction continues, home buying continues. The multifamily, all the multifamily you saw all over the place, they're going to continue to finish those projects. You're not going to see hulking abandoned buildings. So I think there's a lot of that. And one things that's different between this as opposed to a hurricane, it hit the whole world. So it's not like we were singled out, having an exceptional, problem that it didn't happen in, Texas. So everyone felt this. So we were equally. Now, one of the things that I think that in our surveys that we've been doing with the tourism industry is that, people are not in a rush to get on a plane right now, and that's going to take a while. But we have drive time. We're expanding drive time up to Atlanta. So, we've got, 30 million people within a half day drive time from here. And the ability to vacation or to season in a place where you have spread out areas with trails and kayaking and beaches, it seems to be a much more enticing opportunity than theme parks and places where you go with big crowds. So we think all those sort of things come together. One of the places that we really need to help make sure they return strongly is our colleges and universities, FSW, FGCU, and Hodges. We need to continue to, we were concerned at one point that students weren't going to come back because so many of our students work part-time or their parents got impacted. So the ability to pay for college admissions or pay for tuition and whatnot, suspect. Now, all indicators are they're coming. The freshman, the fall semester looks strong for all of our institutions,
Great.
but that's going to be a good bellwether about what else is happening in our economy. If they if they don't come back strong and they have to look at furloughs or other things with their faculty and staff, then you're just going to have attrition. Hertz is a big question mark. Most of our corporate community, Gartner, we didn't, where they had furloughs, it was in the Texas market. It wasn't here. Chico's, they seem to have rebounded, and they're back. They're reemploying people. Their HR department is busy. They're moving to an online platform to their brands. Seem to have done well. During as well as could be during all of this. Herc, is expanding. Like I said, neogenomics, Arthrax, they're all back into business. Hertz, we don't know. We'll have to, this
Right.
could be such an impact on South Lee County.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big question mark that I know is on a lot of people's minds just because of the widespread impact that it can have. So along those that same topic, obviously, our focus with the partnership and my focus with my businesses is in technology, and particularly, I have a vested interest in co-working and remote workers. And so I've been doing a lot of research, and as I mentioned earlier, that's kind of what the messaging has been, is that a lot of these technology-based firms that can go completely remote are, or, at least for the rest of the year are, and, basically the way that I see it, and I think a lot of others see it, is this is just really escalating the path that we were already on, accelerating the path that we were already on, where people are really going to be able to work from home or be distanced from the primary office. So has your office considered that development, and based on Southwest Florida's unique proposition of having quite a bit of space available and still having a strong infrastructure and being, as you pointed out, nearby to quite a few large urban areas, has there been any conversation about marketing specifically to those types of high in demand, very technical professionals that might be looking, in technology, that are looking to get out of, either the West Coast of the U.S. or, Atlanta, as you pointed out, or New York, or any of these larger urban areas? Have you discussed that at all?
Absolutely. I mean, and never has the partnership with you been more important. We really need to figure out how we do that together. Mm-hmm. There's three things that we're looking to see how we come out on. One is that, placemaking may become more important than ever. And because, again, it goes back to the psychology of how you feel about where you live, right, and what you trust in this new environment. So downtown Bonita, Midtown and Fort Myers, Cape Coral Parkway, those are really places that have really transcended and have the potential of being really interesting urban spaces that can have, but still have the space that you can have complete streets and room for adequate bicycling and pedestrian activity and whatnot. And the other thing where we've been approached by a company, I can't announce the name yet, but to be a beta test to develop a online platform for buy local. So it'd be a national platform, an alternative to Amazon for local goods and services that are produced in Southwest Florida. And they narrowed it down from 35 markets to 1, and we're the 1 right now. Great. And so that'll be a partnership with you that we'll talk about as soon as I can. And I think that how you relate, the thing about telecommuting and the ability to work from home changes how retail could look in the future. So your ability to walk downstairs or across the street to get your milk and not have to get in the car and drive. One of the things that we were absolutely crushed by was our commuting times prior to COVID. Mm-hmm. Lee County has the longest distance commute of any county in the state of Florida. If you lived in Lehigh Acres, you were driving on average 45 miles each way to go to work. And so the ability to, we would never have been able to spend all the money you need to do to expand all the roadways and have
Right.
light rail and all the things you need to do to address that. If we can have, and what that also does, it changes how household wealth is spent. So if you're driving so far to go to work, you're going to stop at a Publix on the way to work. You're not going to shop in your neighborhood. So the ability to really focus on parks and the things that we can walk to and shop close to, because we can work from home and our productivity continues to increase. Those are really things that we need to seize on and help every community in Lee County find a way to experience that as well. Whether it's North Fort Myers or it's Estero or it's Fort Myers Beach, we need to make sure, CenturyLink had just announced they were going to make their largest investment in broadband in Lehigh Acres and anywhere across their footprint. So that, to have the fastest broadband coming to Lehigh Acres of anywhere in the county is, really terrific. Florida Lambda Rail, which is a former National Science Foundation investment through the universities, now comes to downtown Fort Myers to the Collaboratory. Right. And so, for not-for-profits and research, it's a free access to the fastest dark fiber in the world through the Southwest Florida Community Foundation. So we have some really interesting assets that we can build on. We need to, and because we are going to do significant construction, we have the ability to bury cables and to look at infrastructure in a different way. We're well along doing a program with 41 to make it ready to support autonomous vehicles next year. So there's, we're involved in technology more than we know that we are. And I just think we need to continue to build that. And I think the conversation that you and I can have on how we make that into both an economic development initiative, but also an equity initiative so that everyone has access to the same technologies, not just those who can pay for it.
Yeah, no, that's really exciting. And definitely would love to have more conversation about those efforts. It sounds like some cool stuff, some cool technology that'll be involved. So I think that's something we'll talk about a little bit
and
more.
Alex, we're going to be the home of the Edison Awards. So these are the awards that Elon Musk won and Steve Jobs won, and they want to make Lee County their home. And so, we've had, during this whole event, we had continued to have conversations with them, with WGCU, innovation moments and what does innovation look like, today versus what it looked like 6 months ago. And so, those are the beginning of conversations that I need to bring you into.
Awesome. And that's, I know that those conversations were happening, but they've continued to happen even with everything going on and kind of the global hold on events.
Yeah, just by Zoom.
Right, of course. Yeah, we're getting pretty used to that. And actually, that's a great transition. So one of the things I wanted to talk about with you, John, is that how has this impacted you personally? So, I have a tendency to forget because I live in technology all day, every day. That's my comfort zone. So I don't necessarily realize how much of an impact this has had for some that have really been forced to integrate technology a lot more heavily into their lives and into their day job than a lot of people were able to kind of keep it at a little bit of arm's length up to this point. So how has it impacted you personally? Have you gotten more comfortable? Have you just leveraged more of what you were comfortable with? Have you found yourself in any kind of sticky situations like we've seen on the internet?
I think when the Supreme Court had its first Zoom hearing, and someone did a mute, and all you heard was someone flushing the toilet.
Yes, that was a good one.
Said it all.
Yeah.
We didn't. I never went home. I mean, so we came to the office every day, and so while we conducted our business through technology, it wasn't. I can't appreciate how difficult it must have been for someone who had to go and figure out their home technology and get those services installed and figure all that out. I couldn't have dealt with that. So I think the new norm is going to be this. And I think, the departments in the county, procurement and HR that did work from home, I think they felt that their productivity increased. Their ability to deal with childcare, their ability to think about healthcare and use telemedicine as opposed to piling everybody in the car and driving down the street. I think that everyone became much more. And I went through a telemedicine exam as well. And I think we all became much more comfortable with that. And I hope that is the new norm, because there is nothing good about getting in your car every day and driving hours and hours while your kids are going the opposite direction and your spouse a third direction. So, we can find a way to make this much more part of our lifestyle. I think that's a really good outcome that we can begin to envision, and then build a more micro economy around those kind of economic decisions that really support and sustain this.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more with that statement. I think, I've gone through telemedicine during all of this. Again, obviously I'm comfortable being fully remote. We utilized telemedicine. Spent a lot more time utilizing online services, pre-ordering rather than going into the store and things like that. So I was a big online shopper already, but I think it's just a sign of the future, and I think it's just making sure that we take the opportunity and get ahead of it to make sure that we see how it can have a positive impact, and where the gaps are going to be in the local economy. So, for example, a software company that employs 60, 70, 80 people that all of a sudden goes remote, that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to leave Southwest Florida. They probably wouldn't. But what happens with that office space, to your point, how do we leverage that and make sure that we understand those decisions that are being made from the companies that are in the technology partnership, and participate in those conversations so that we can help plan for that type of thing. But John, we've already gone way over what we had projected, so it's been super helpful. Great insights from you. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you want to make sure that the community is aware of as far as your efforts, or how they can have a positive impact on everything that's going on right now?
I mean, one of the things that we've been very cognizant of has been the issue of equity. And in the light of what's going on around the country for the last few days, it's more important than ever. And so, the ability to access broadband, the ability to have access to technology, the ability to work from home, or have a job that allows you to work from home and not have to be in the front line at Publix, or be in a public facing job that puts you at risk. Really, makes us really think about who are the frontline workers. Or in a typical disaster, is your utility, your public works. Well, this time it's your grocery store workers or your nurses, and so it's a whole different a way of looking at workforce. And we need to make sure that they're compensated, and that the divisions that are out there on the streets, are things that we recognize, and we have the courage to address. And we watched the protests last night in Fort Myers as it was evolving around the police station. And I think the Fort Myers Police Department, particularly, and the Sheriff's Department, they have a long history of community engagement, and so we didn't have the same kind of sparks that you might have elsewhere. Chief Diggs has done a terrific job at trying to reassert the confidence of the community in Dunbar, and to make sure that's something that people are really aware of. For something that seems as silly as Deputy Dog, Sheriff Carmine's effort to really put pet abuse on as a real issue, it certainly gives it a human face. And I think that we can be proud of all our first responders, But we do have a new set of first responders, and they're the grocery workers and the people that are taking our temperature when we walk into places. And we just need to be mindful out of respect for them, that we say thank you to them as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, John, I think that's a great point. Definitely want to make sure that we echo that sentiment and say thank you to all of the frontline workers. And the other point that you bring up, so as mentioned, we're June 1st now, so there's a lot going on in the country with protests and based on the events up in Minneapolis and around the U.S. Over the last week or two. And I do just want to say that, we as the Southwest Florida Partnership and being a part of the community couldn't be more proud to see that we haven't had those issues and that we have had protests and that on both sides everybody's very respectful and that we haven't had any issues so to speak or conflict. So extremely proud to say that locally and I hope that as a greater country we can kind of get on track and get some of these issues resolved as quickly and as fairly as possible. Certainly understand the need to bring awareness to these concerns, of course. So with that said, John, I want to thank you so much for your time. Greatly appreciate it. I know that you have a lot of things going on. So just to reiterate, for anybody that's interested in the initiative that was rolled out, the Lee Cares initiative, it's leeflcares.com if you want to learn more or apply. If you have need any assistance from a technology perspective, we at the Tech Partnership will be more than happy to support you however we can. And we continue to try to find different ways to support the community during this time. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or suggestions, please continue to reach out and let us know. So thanks again, John. Really appreciate it and look forward to speaking with you again soon.
I look forward to it. Thank you.